You wake up, it's 7 a.m. in the morning, and you're already tired. You're already ready to go back to bed, and the day just started. Then you drag yourself out of bed, you go to the washroom, brush your teeth, and you feel this immense pit in your stomach. You got to start work. You have stand up to attend to. You have tons of meetings today. You have so much work to do. You're absolutely miserable and unmotivated. You constantly contemplate on when you're going to quit, when you're going to retire, and you're thinking about those vacations you're going to have in the summer and the hangouts you're going to have with friends. But right now you just got to grind your way through and get stuff done. This is how most people live their lives. And this is what causes burnout. Today I want to talk about burnout, and I want to talk about how most people struggle with this exact thing and what we can do about it. The reason I feel qualified to answer this question is because for 4 years, I've been juggling multiple things. I've been spending 60 to 70 hours a week on work. I've been playing video games on the side. I also have a wife and friends and family and relationships that I gotta maintain. And despite all this, I have never once burnt out. And honestly, to some extent, I don't believe in it. But before we dive into that, there's a lot I want to talk about, and there's a lot of things I want to cover. So let's get straight into it. For most people, burnout is usually caused by hating your job. Now, I like to think hating your job boils down to two things, those being the people and the work. So the people is the people that you're surrounding yourself with. That could be your manager, that could be your coworkers, stakeholders, and pretty much anybody that's involved in your workplace. And then the work is the actual stuff that you do. So that could be like creating email marketing campaigns, that could be like writing software, that could be like taking phone calls and trying to close a deal in sales, right? So those are the two things, or the two main factors that can lead to you hating your job, which can also lead to you burning out eventually. So let's dissect people first. Most of the time, you feel unheard. You also struggle with communication, and that goes both ways. Your manager sucks at delivering feedback to you, and you suck at asking questions to your manager. And you often feel stupid around people. You often feel like an imposter. And you'll hear a lot about company culture. You'll hear a lot about the communication, networking skills, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I think there's obviously going to be terrible people around you no matter what you do. And that could be in your friends, your friend group, your family. You could even be married to a terrible person. Who knows, right? There's so many different ways to look at it. But the idea is you want to make sure that you're prepared to handle those situations the most effective and productive way possible. And in fact, most people are not terrible. They do terrible things. A lot of people conceptually train their brains into thinking, I hate everyone. Everyone sucks. I wish I was just in my room alone. But the truth is, everyone is amazing. 99% of the world are good people. They're just really bad at communicating. They're just really bad at portraying and that's what leads to individuals feeling unheard, communication breaks down, and you feeling like an imposter. So you need to frame your mind in a way where you perceive and see the good in people, and you use that as leverage to continue progressing in your life and making your situation much more exciting and improving yourself as a human being. So instead of telling yourself, I hate everyone, tell yourself, I love everyone. Everyone's great. And if your manager shits on you that day, be like, oh man, I'm sure they're having such a shitty day. It's so sad to see that they're taking it out on the employees. I really want to make sure they're okay. Instead of, oh man, that manager's such a complete dickhead, like completely ruined my week. I'm so unmotivated. I gotta find a new job. If your manager is a dickhead, absolutely, you should be trying to find a new job and find a more fulfilling job. But that doesn't necessarily mean in the short term of things, within the next 3 to 5 months that you're going to be with that manager while you look for your other job, you can burn out in those 3 to 5 months. So if you make yourself even more miserable in those 3 to 5 months, you're just making it worse for yourself, right? So instead, change your mindset and change your thinking. Sure, you're going to look for something better, right? You're going to go on LinkedIn, you're going to apply to jobs, send your resumes, and take interviews. But in the meantime, while your manager is going to be shitting on you every day for the next 3 to 5 months, try to build out a strategy on how you're going to deal with that situation, right? You're going to take your manager's feedback, you're going to throw it in the garbage. Maybe some of your manager's feedback is actually true as well. So you're going to pick and choose what you want to address, right? And there are certain limitations that you know about yourself. There are certain weaknesses that you know about yourself. And if your manager is reiterating those, then that might be a good idea to reinforce those and learn on those and fix them. And then there might be other garbage that your manager's throwing in that's just unnecessary. They're just saying it because they're angry about the situation. You just throw that stuff out. So again, you have to be able to handle these situations. That's all you can control. You can only control yourself. You cannot control the people around you. You cannot control your manager. You cannot control your wife, your friends, your family. The only thing you can control is yourself. And so the best thing to do and the most productive thing to do in those situations is being the bigger person. And that will not only lead to more fulfillment, that will also avoid you getting burnt out. For the next 3 to 5 months, you're going to be able to survive your manager and you're going to be much more sharp, right? Because again, if you're burnt out and you're still trying to do interviews, your performance is going to reflect on those interviews as well. When they ask you certain questions, you're not going to be able to answer them because you're just so frustrated and burnt out. Your brain cannot perceive any more information and your brain cannot formulate a response because you're just so overloaded with thinking about these people living in your head rent free. Your manager's living in your head rent free. And the only thing you can control is who gets to live in your head rent free. And I think some people should be able to live in your head rent free, and I think others don't. And you got to decide. But again, frame your mind from a positive angle. Everyone is amazing. You love everyone. People are just having a shitty day. Instead of telling yourself, I hate everyone. People suck. I just want to be alone. I can talk about people all day, but we have a whole video to record. So let's go to work. The second thing is the job itself you do is just boring and miserable. And this is true for, I would say, 60 to 70% of all jobs in the world. The reason I say this is because think about an entrepreneur trying to build a business, right? They're most likely going to do the work that's enjoyable themselves. That's strategy, that's hiring, that's decision making. Those are the fun stuff. And they're going to delegate the grunt work, the actual physical labor work, to other people, because it's not a good use of their time and they don't want to do that stuff. So most jobs in this world sucks. And that's not exclusive to software. That's not exclusive to marketing, sales. Doesn't matter. I mean, think YouTube, for example, right? For me, the labor intensive work is editing and the labor intensive work is like copywriting, script writing. This video is not scripted. I'm completely winging it, but some other videos are scripted. And to me, that's a bit mind numbing. So what I would do is I would delegate that work to somebody else. And maybe they love it, maybe they don't. But there's a high likelihood that the work I'm delegating is not as fulfilling because the stuff that is fulfilling, I'm doing it myself. So once you understand that, you'll realize the grass is not always greener. And up until a certain point, I think if you're at the exec C-level suite and higher, or you're a founder, up until a certain point, most of the stuff you'll ever run into, most of the work you'll ever do, will be annoying and boring. And that mindset, the grass is always greener, looking at other people's stuff and envying other people, opening Instagram stories, seeing other people, seeing your salesperson going and traveling across the world, opening Instagram and seeing their stories, and oh my God, that person's living it up. Meanwhile, the salesperson's just, they never get to be at home. They're always out and about, and they're just tired. They're muscling through it despite the fact that they're so tired, they're sleep deprived. And they're looking at you and they're like, oh, that guy gets to work from home and they're so lucky. It's just two people just staring at each other and looking at all the positives and completely ignoring the negatives. So that grass is always greener mentality is what leads to unfulfilling work. And that's not to discount that some jobs are just actually miserable. And I completely get it. Some jobs are very hard on your body, especially like physical labor. And I get it. And I know you want to move out of that. And in those situations, I think it's okay to strive for something better. But at the end of the day, you still don't want to have that grass is always greener mentality because it'll always make you feel behind and unmotivated. You'll always feel like there's something better. And your brain releases more dopamine on the thought of things. So when you're thinking about your dream job or dream career, or when you're thinking about your friend doing sales and going on networking events and having a blast, your brain is releasing more dopamine and increasing your baseline. And then when you go back to your regular job where you're doing regular stuff, they're already desensitized to over time. Then all of a sudden, your dopamine levels drop back to where it was before, which was your normal level. Your baseline increased after thinking about those situations, and now you're back to normal level. But that sudden drop is often associated with sadness, anxiety, stress, unmotivated. So at the end of the day, it's just brain chemistry, it's just neurochemistry, and you have to understand it. And the more you understand that, the less you let yourself think the grass is always greener, the more fulfilling your work will become. Because at the end of the day, your work is just a tool to earn money, to then get yourself closer to the actual lifestyle that you want. For most of us, that's financial freedom, right? And we want to be able to keep our mental headspace free, to be able to make those investment decisions, to be able to make those decisions that will actually help us get closer to financial freedom, rather than worrying about our friends or families on what they're up to. Whatever they're up to is probably exciting, but that's not my problem, and I frankly don't care. That's how I like to look at it. In fact, when someone tells me they're up to something, they're doing cool stuff, they're going to places, I'm just happy for them, man. I'm just genuinely happy for them. I used to, 5-10 years ago, get jealous and think the exact way you guys think, right? Grass is always greener. But today I just don't care. I'm happy for you. I'm really glad that you're doing stuff in your life, and I'm really glad that you're making progress and getting closer to financial freedom. I wish the best for you. If you have any advice for me to get to where you are, please give it to me. And that's it. That's the spot I leave it at. And that's generally made it's the same work that I've been doing for the 4 years, right? I've always been writing code. I've always been managing teams, making technical decisions. The same stuff I'm doing that I was doing 4 years ago, but I feel more happy with my work today than I do 4 years ago. The main difference isn't because I'm quote unquote more skilled. In fact, I probably was a lot smarter back then, and I'm getting dumber and dumber every day. The amount of engineering output that I had back then was insane. I was just genuinely shocked how I could build a whole food delivery app within 4 months. And now thinking about it, it's going to take me at least a year. I was a lot smarter back then. It's not that. It's not my technical skills. It's actually my interpersonal skills, and just being generally a better person and a good person is what's leading me to be more fulfilled with my work. The work itself never changed. So that's it. That's probably why you hate your job. The people on the work, and it's just a mentality shift. Become a more positive person and stop thinking the grass is always greener. Moving on from this, let's dissect feeling behind in life and unmotivated, which we touched on slightly, but more, we can actually combine these two. We can feeling behind in life and unmotivated, and expectations versus reality. They're very much hand in hand. So every single person in this world has expectations, and these expectations come from their upbringing, they come from the people they've surrounded themselves with, and they come from the media that they consume, right? If you're a man and you're looking for a relationship, you're going to have certain expectations of the woman or man or whatever you're into. You're going to have a certain set of expectations for them. And the same goes for a woman. Woman looking for a man, you're going to have certain expectations. And you can apply that to just about everything in life. You're going to have expectations from your parents, your dad, your mom. You're going to have expectations from your manager. Your manager will have expectations from you. Then there's the reality of what actually happens. And oftentimes, the expectations and reality are just so far off. And that's what leads to feeling behind and feeling unmotivated. If your expectation was by 20, and actually, no, I'm going to use my expectations. When I was 18, I used to go around telling people, yeah, I want to be a millionaire by 25. That was my expectation. I'm 25 today, by the way. And I'm definitely not a millionaire. I wish. But yeah, back then I was going around telling people I'm going to be a millionaire by 25. If I don't, then my life just is miserable and it sucks. And I created that expectation. The reality was becoming a millionaire is one of the hardest things to do, and it takes people decades. Me thinking, even if it took me a decade from 18, I'd be 28 before realistically I'd become a millionaire. But again, I was just telling myself that, I was telling people that. And then the reality was that's just not going to happen. Come 25, I'm not there yet. Now I'm obviously going to feel behind, because that's what I told myself. I need to be here at a certain point. On the other hand, there's a situation where I wanted to marry my wife at 28. I got married at 23. So in other aspects, I'm ahead. I'm 5 years ahead. So that's the problem with expectations, is oftentimes the reality does not match up with expectations, and anything you plan out will almost always not pan out. And this is to say, for managing a project, scoping a project out, if you think the project's going to get delivered in 6 months, it's probably going to take 9, or it might take 3. And actually, this also combines the idea of proactive versus resilient. So when I came up with the organization of this video, I thought, okay, I'm going to talk about hating your job, feeling behind in life, expectation versus reality, and proactive versus resilience. But I'm realizing these three things are pretty hand in hand, and I'm going to explain to you what proactive versus resilience means right now. So proactive people to me are people that plan 2 steps ahead, and they're always just going to try to like perceive and think all these scenarios in their head and always try to find the best option to go for. And they're going to plan it out, and everything's going to go great. And this is how I used to be. This is how my wife is. This is how my parents are. This is literally how 99% of the world is. I prefer to be resilient. Instead of planning out every aspect of everything, I prefer to be resilient enough to be able to handle anything. What that means is, instead of, if I had to, for example, plan a project that I need to deliver, I'll obviously have to give an estimate to the client because they're going to have to create a budget for the project, and they're going to have to consider other options and then bid on the best contractor. So they're going to need that information. So I'll plan out what I need to plan out. I'll plan out the project itself. I'll plan out the timelines. I'll plan out the things that needs to be done. But with the caveat that if things don't get delivered, I am resilient enough to figure out an alternate solution. And people respect that. People respect other people that understand things don't always go the way you want them to, but you are fully capable of reacting and responding to changing situations and changing environments. And that's, to me, what's more important than being proactive. So for all of you that think of 50 million scenarios, I don't know, if you're going to ask out a girl and you're already thinking, oh, what if she rejects me, or what if she laughs at me? Instead, what if no matter how she reacted, you always had a solution, right? She laughs, okay. You laugh back, oh yeah, that was funny, right? And then just walk away. And then everyone has short memory. Within a week, everyone's going to forget about that situation. Who cares? But instead, in your head, you'll be like, oh, but if I get rejected, everyone's going to laugh at me. I'm going to get ostracized by the community. I'm going to get shunned out by everyone. No one's going to like me anymore, blah, blah, blah. This, to me, is what a proactive person is. To be honest with you, as much as people say, oh, this person's planned ahead, organized, blah, 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 to me, that's just a sign for burnout, and it's not sustainable. I think you got to be proactive to some extent, but it's not sustainable long term. To me, when I hire someone and they call themselves a perfectionist, that's an immediate red flag. Perfectionists are literally the worst employees ever, because they take 10 times as long to get things done, and they're like always planning 50 million steps ahead. And that might be useful for maybe a company at the scale of Amazon, but actually a lot of people that I talk to at Amazon operates like a startup. Amazon is just as much a startup than people give credit for. Things are barely functioning within the company, and yet they're the second biggest company in the world. Apple might be more proactive in that sense. They're the ones who plan 10 steps ahead, which has worked for them. But Apple's also notorious for burning out their employees. Amazon burns out their employees too, but for different reasons. It's workload. It's the workload versus the proactiveness that burns out the Amazon employees. And so if you're a resilient person, you can react to a situation no matter what. You always have a solution. This doesn't always apply to every situation, but again, a smart person will pick and choose when to be proactive and when to be resilient. But let's use 90% scenario here. 90% of the time you're resilient. Then first of all, you don't have expectations, or your expectations are very low, because again, regardless of what happens, you'll find a solution. Expectations gone, and then all there's left is reality. You already know how to react to reality. Since you had no expectations, feeling behind in life is gone. Since you're no longer feeling behind, you're no longer unmotivated. Your work doesn't suck anymore because the grass is not always greener. The people around you are generally more positive around them. Even though they might be negative towards you, you're like, I understand you're having a bad day. If there's anything I can do to help you out, then the communication improves. And also, again, you're resilient now. So you no longer feel like an imposter, because regardless of whatever happens, you're going to figure out a way to get the solution out and get something done. So you're no longer an imposter. Again, you're a much more positive person. People are going to respond to that as well. And people are going to be more understanding of you, because again, you're framing it that I love people, I love everyone, I want to help people. They're going to be receptive to that, and they're going to listen to you and hear you out. So you're not going to feel unheard anymore. You've eliminated the people problem. You eliminated your hating your job. All that's left is being resilient to the reality. And that's the one takeaway that I want you to get from this video. That's, if there's one takeaway that I want you to get from this video, is you need to be resilient to your reality. And that is how you'll avoid burnout. That is absolutely how you'll 10x your productivity. Everyone around you will say you're an amazing person. You're such a cool person. You're going to feel heard. You're going to make great relationships. Everything's going to work out for you. And you're going to retire early. You're going to have, and even me saying this is creating expectation. You know what? I shouldn't even say this. You're just going to be able to adapt to any situation. So that's the end of that. Doesn't matter what happens in your life. Doesn't matter when you retire. Doesn't matter how your relationships go. At the end of the day, you're such an empowered human being. You're such a smart and motivated person. No matter what, you'll come out on top. Nobody will be able to compete with you. That's it. If you enjoy this video, drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.